Howdy everyone. Alrighty, so let's see. So like I had said before, I had the skin on here and I match drilled everything that I needed to match drill with the skin on. Since then, I've come back and I've made this angle bracket here. And I've gone ahead and match drilled it to the firewall, and I've got it held down with a single cleco. So now this piece is done and secure. I still need to figure out where to put the holes on this piece for the nut plates that attach to this piece to hold the block that holds the pivot mechanism for the Canopy Jettison linkage. So the first thing that I've decided to do is to find the linkage and start making it. So this is drawing 47. You can see the linkage here. And I'm making these two pieces here, these two metal tubes. They're 4130 steel. Here are the two detail drawings for those two tubes. You'll note that they're different lengths. This one's quite a bit longer than this one. These are the details for those, and I've already started on them. Another thing to note, one end of each tube gets an 1/8 inch thick slit, and the other end of each tube gets a 1/16 of an inch slit, roughly. The smaller slit, the 1/16 inch slit on each end, is for this metal piece here. And the wider 1/8 inch slit on each tube is to fit this eye bolt. So I've already started on that, and basically I'm starting on the 16th slit, and basically all I had done was used not a bandsaw. I couldn't use my bandsaw. I didn't trust it. And I don't have the right kind of blade for cutting steel, but I used just a hacksaw and cut it down with a hacksaw, and then I used a very small jeweler's file to open it up a little bit wider and to clean off the rough edges. Here's the metal piece, and the slit's got to be wide enough for this metal piece to fit into it. Now that I've got that done, I'm getting ready to drill the hole through the end. And I've got my drill bits out. I've got the smallest one on the drill bit at the moment. But what I start with is this. This is a center drill. This is quite small. I don't know what number this is. But I just use this to start my pilot hole. I've already done that on the drill press. I've got my piece on the drill press. Of course, you want the hole to be perpendicular to the slit. I've got that set up, and I've already drilled with the, wow, I just can't think today. It's not a countersink. I just said what it was, the center drill. So you can see where I started with the center drill here. I've got my smallest drill bit in now. And I'm going to go ahead and drill through the hole and through the other side, and then I'll step up gradually. I'll gradually step up larger and larger till I get to my final size, which is a number 12. So that's the plan. To do the larger slit on the opposite end of each tube, I'm going to use my milling machine. I didn't have an end mill small enough to do the 1/16 inch slit, but I do have an 1/8 inch, so I can cut the slit on the other end. That's the plan. Let me get these holes drilled, and then we'll see what gives. Okay, so back at the airplane, what I have done, you can see where I have put the slit in this piece for the rods that connect from this pivot point out to the actual pins that get slid when this rotates. So of course one of the arms has to pass through this piece, and you have to mill a slot so there's enough room so when this piece turns, your shaft still can go from this point to the pin and not interfere with this piece. So I've got my slit cut. You can see I've got my block in place temporarily. This is just slid on with a couple of bolts. So what I'm doing now is a couple of things. One, I'm verifying the length from this point to this point for one rod, and then the length from this point to this point for the other rod. I'll adjust the length of those rods if needed, and then I'll finish slitting them and putting the holes through them. I am also making sure that I can put a rod on here, put a bolt through it temporarily to hold the rod, and just make sure that when this piece is parallel with this piece or parallel with the block, that the rod itself doesn't hit this slit either top to bottom or back here in the corner, just to make sure that when this is in the correct position, this orientation, that the rod that's connected to it doesn't hit inside of this slit. So I've already done that. I've verified that the rod will fit onto here, and it will. I haven't done this, the slit for this end yet. I've only slit each rod to fit this piece, but I've had it on. I've had the rod connected. I verified that it does in fact clear the slit very nicely. Of course, the block fits nicely onto the channel piece, and I've got the channel piece drilled, but I have not installed the nut plate. So I think that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to go ahead and pull this off, and then I'll go ahead and drill my holes required here for the nut plates. I'll pull this piece off, drill those holes, put the nut plates on. Then I can bolt this piece in place, and then I can go ahead and figure out what length this rod needs to be, cut it to the appropriate length, slit it for this pin, and then drill my hole. And then I'll do the same on this side. I'll figure out what length this rod needs to be. I'll slit it for the pin and then drill my hole. So I think that's the procedure that I'm going to go with going forward. Just another reminder, when you drill holes through the soft plastic, you got to go to a different size drill bit than you would if you were drilling through metal. So again, when you drill these holes here through the nylon, that would be a number 10 drill bit. But when you drill through the metal, that's going to be a number 12. And I believe that's it for now. So let me work on these rods, and I'll get those fitted, and I'll come back. Howdy, everyone. All right, I want to go over a few things before I get too far ahead of myself here. Again, make sure that the block is pushed tight against the channel as if it was bolted in place. Make sure that this latch mechanism here is parallel with this piece. You don't want it twisted at all. You want to make sure that it runs true across this edge here. You can see that I've got my tube in place. I've got it temporarily held with a bolt. It's just loose, obviously. And what I'm trying to do now is figure out the length to cut the tube. So I've been chipping away at it, and I've got it cut to the appropriate length. And now I'm marking the spot to put the hole through it. So you can see the pin has already got a hole in it. And what I have done was, just using a Sharpie marker, I went ahead and marked roughly where the center of the hole is. And then I brought that line down around to the edge of the pin. And I've got my tube laid slightly under the pin, and I just transfer that line from the pin onto my tube. Couple things to keep in mind. One, you want to make sure that the pin is pushed in all the way. So you want to make sure that the pin is pushed in all the way, that it's fully engaged. And you want to try and have the edge, the length of the tube, the edge of the tube almost touching the shoulder of the pin, if that makes sense. So you want the end of the tube almost touching that shoulder area of the pin. That will give you good edge distance on the tube itself. And then it's just a matter of transferring the center line of the hole to the tube, which I've just done simply by using the Sharpie marker. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to drill that hole, and then I'm going to cut the slit. And this slit's going to be 1/8 of an inch or slightly wider to fit the thickness of the pin. And then I'm just going to duplicate that exact same thing for this side. I don't believe I need to cut this length. I think the tube is already a good length. I think it's just a matter of marking the hole and then putting the slit in it. But I'm just going to do the same procedure for this other side. So let me work on that, and I'll show you the end result when I get it done.